Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine, and this week we're hearing about some open water pike fishing on the Connecticut River. We're hearing about holdover stripers waking up throughout the region, and some great open water trout fishing happening on the Cape. Stay tuned for all that and more on this week's New England Fishing Forecast.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
So before we begin, I just want to remind everybody that the rat contest is coming to a close. I'm going to give you guys until maybe Saturday or Sunday to get your photos in. I've got a couple really good ones this time. It's going to be tough to beat, but that's what makes it exciting. I've got a couple extra things to give away as well, so get those photos in before the end of the weekend, and we'll reveal the winner next week. So let's start in the North Country, and so up in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, lots of safe ice, anywhere from 10 to 20 inches depending on where you go. From what I heard, pretty much across the board, the ice fishing was a little slower over this past week. Hard to say why. Could be a seasonal thing, could be a weather thing, could be that the fish are just over it. I don't know. Talked to James Jukes. He said that he was up in New Hampshire and found a pretty slow bite. Did get some perch, got a small brown trout, had to work for him. Said he's probably going to stay on the ice for another week and then start doing some more open water fishing. As you cross over into Massachusetts, in the main body of Massachusetts, the fuselage, if you will, it's still pretty much all ice in that region. Lots of safe ice there, 6 to 10 inches depending on where you are. Further west you go, further north you go, the harder, safer it's going to be. Definitely going to want to watch the edges. There's definitely some, crumbly edges in that region. But still plenty of fish to be caught. In fact, Roy didn't have time to shoot us an actual report video this week, but he did tell me that there's still plenty of ice and still lots of fish to be caught. He just sent me a short video of some ice sharking. Check this out.
So we got a lot of snow today. Decided to build a snowman. In this case, it's a great white shark. It's around an 8-inch hole, so I'm going to jig through it, see if we can catch fish out of it. Northland tungsten jig, tipped with the waxy. In about 12, 13 feet of water. Ho, ho, ho. You get him? Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love it.
That was interesting and hilarious and one heck of a fish. Thanks for sending that over, Roy, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again next week. But as you kind of cross over 24, Route 24, and start getting down toward the Cape into Plymouth, kind of going up, 495, you're going to start to see that the ice just kind of disappears. So we got a lot of open water on the approaches to the Cape, and pretty much everything on the Cape is open. The issue has been that we've had some really cold nights, so we're getting like skim ice and then open water, then skim ice and then open water. So that surface temperature is right around 32 degrees all the time, and that's cold. So it is making fishing tough, especially for species that aren't trout. So I'm not hearing anyone getting bass, smallmouth bass, any of that stuff. What we're hearing about mostly is trout. So the best places have been the Nickerson State Park ponds and Sheep Pond have been producing some really nice brown trout. It's been mostly on live bait, but you can definitely get them on jerk baits and things like that. And then, on the Upper Cape, you're going to see, all of those ponds that are stocked, and you can go on the DFW website and see which ones they stock, see which ones have been most recently stocked. But any one of those is going to be worth your time. And, I went last week, just took an afternoon in the freezing cold and just tried to kind of re-inaugurate the open water season. And it was a tough bite, but we got some trout, we got some rainbows and some browns, and nothing of great size, but, it felt good to bend the rod again. And that's definitely going to be your best option if you want to bend the rod in Massachusetts. I don't know of any saltwater fishing going on. I haven't heard of anyone getting any holdover stripers in that region just yet. So that's a story that I have for you guys in Massachusetts this week. In Rhode Island, there's really two fisheries that are taking place right now. I'm sure some guys are freshwater fishing. I haven't really heard much. I don't think stocking has begun quite yet in Rhode Island. Hopefully I have an update for you on that next week. But the holdover stripers are starting to wake up. So, any of those South Shore ponds, they've all got varying degrees of holdover striper populations. You're going to want to target the deeper water. And then up into Narragansett Bay, same deal. A lot of those rivers and bays that kind of give way to or open up to Narragansett Bay have holdover striper populations, and the fishing's starting to pick up. Right now, it's still been fairly slow. Fish have been on the smaller side, but as we start to see more herring, and some of the herring runs, we'll start to see herring. Some years we've seen them by now, but haven't heard anything yet. Some guys like to keep it quiet. I understand. But once those herring start moving in, we're going to start to see bigger fish. We're going to start to see that the fish are willing to chase bigger offerings, and they're going to be up in the shallows more. So that's something to keep your eye on in the coming weeks. The other thing that's going on right now is there's still cod fishing going on south of Block. Latest reports tell of long rides. They're going well south of Block, fishing wrecks out there. And from by all accounts, the fishing has been good, but not great. And that's the story that I have for you guys in Rhode Island this week. As we move over into Connecticut, there are three fisheries that are worth talking about. And the first one is the trout fishing. Now, as you hopefully already know, but if you don't, let this be your, let me enlighten you. The Connecticut legislators voted in December to do away with that closed portion of the trout season, which used to be from March 1st to the second Saturday in April. That was all pre-pandemic. They started opening things up early the last 2 years and was well received, and I guess they wanted to keep it going. Unfortunately, they made it difficult. So, first of all, that segment of time, the first, March 1st all the way to the second Saturday in April, which I believe is April 9th this year, all trout caught must be released. That's fine with me. That's the easy part. Still going out there, you're still doing the fun stuff, and you're leaving those fish in there for the people who want to keep that opening day tradition alive. That's fine. But the hard part is that if you're fishing in a pond that has a closed season, and I was surprised by how many of these ponds there are in Connecticut. I thought, I'd look at the document, there might be like 15 ponds. It was more like, 50, 70, a lot. Dozens of lakes and ponds in Connecticut have their own closed seasons, and they're all over the place. It can be, it might be October 31st, November 30th, New Year's Eve, on and on from there. They have all their own closed seasons, but they all open on that second Saturday in April. So if those ponds happen to be stocked with trout, you can fish for trout in those ponds, but that's it. You can't target bass, pickerel, perch, pike, whatever. I don't know how they're going to enforce this. A lot of my methods for catching trout are methods I use for bass, suspending jerkbaits, Ned rigs, things of that nature. And even, if you're fishing with live bait, I guess you just have to consider it bycatch and think of it as something that has to be released right away. So it's going to be tricky, and apparently they're going to revamp the rules again and release them maybe or probably in June, the website says. So my advice to you would be to go to the Deep website and read up on this yourself, just to make sure you agree with my interpretation of this whole thing, because I think they made it unnecessarily complicated, and I don't want anyone to get in trouble. So definitely check that out. But the trout fishing overall has been very good throughout the state, especially in the rivers. We're hearing a lot of good things. I got a report late last week from Derek from Connecticut Fish Guides. I'm going to throw it up here now. It may be slightly dated or just a little bit old, but take it away, Derek.
Hey Dave, checking in for a quick river report here on the Farmington River. The fishing has kind of been up and down, and that tends to do with negative and positive water temp spikes. Your negative temp spikes can happen with runoff or ice out that has begun. So your warmest days aren't necessarily going to be your best days, because you're going to get a lot of snow melt. Some of the lakes, still have plenty of ice on them. And now that we've gotten rid of most of the snow, we're forecasted for another storm to come through. So you really need to think in terms of negative and positive spikes. Your better days, or your more consistent days, are going to be your clear sky days where the sun can penetrate the water. And we want air temps to be right around freezing, or maybe a little above. And that's going to give you less snow melt than if you have one of these 50 or 60 degree days, which is going to cause a lot of melt and a negative spike. So we have a few really cold nights coming up. So any nights in the single or in the teens can create slush in the morning on the river. And in those scenarios, the river may not even be fishable until like 11:30 or 12:30 on different parts of the river. But once that slush clears up, you do have a shot at some larger fish. Smaller fish kind of shut down, but the larger fish continue to feed. But they do so during the optimal part of the day with temperature. So it's not going to be a type of thing where the fishing is great all day. You may have a window of 2 hours or an hour where the fishing is really good. Last week, one of my clients got 3 fish over 18 in the matter of maybe 2 hours. But before that, it was really slow. So playing the temperature spikes is going to be the key here in trout fishing across the state. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, really appreciate that. Great insights on the Farmington, and hopefully we'll hear from you again next week. Now, the other fishery that's really starting to gain some speed in Connecticut is the open water pike fishing on the Connecticut River. We had all that rain, we had some warm weather, the water levels went up, they went down, and it kind of broke up all the ice and sent it out into the Sound. Wow, that rhymed. Anyway, so ice fishing is almost completely done in the Connecticut River. There might be some little spot somewhere that I don't know about where guys are still getting out there. But in its place has opened up this open water fishery. And these are pre-spawn fish, so you're going to catch mostly males, which means they're going to top out at 30 inches. But the bite can be really good. You can get some interesting bycatch. You can catch some stripers, largemouth, bowfin, who knows what else might be in there. That place is quite the fishery in there. But there's two accepted methods, or two best methods to get them. Either live or dead bait, so big shiners, golden shiners, suckers, fall fish, live or dead, fished under a float or on the bottom. Or throwing big, bright jerk baits. So stuff in like the 7-inch class. Fire tiger, clown, chartreuse, bright yellow, straight white. Anything that's going to stand out in dirty water. Gets a lot of fish. You can also slow roll big spinner baits, things like that. So that has been productive to start, and usually, right after ice out is the best time to do it. And the month of March is, widely considered to be the best time to look for pike on the rod and reel in the Connecticut River. So that's one thing to keep an eye on. Another thing is, it's just like Rhode Island, those holdover stripers are starting to wake up, and you can kind of use the Housatonic as a barometer for all the other tributaries and rivers in Connecticut that hold stripers in the wintertime. What we're seeing in the Hoosy is that the fish are waking up. They're becoming a little bit more active. The bite is still not red hot, but it's good. It's been better at night. That's, when you're getting more action and you're hooking into some bigger fish. Daytime fishermen are saying it hasn't been a problem at all finding fish. It's just not always easy to get them to bite. So one thing that you can do is just play the conditions. So if if you get a cloudy day, if you get rain seems to be a big thing for the Hoosy. Water coming over the dam just injects the whole situation with more bait and more water movement. It seems to get those fish feeding. You can also try to fish ahead of weather fronts. That seems to also get them going. But the main the main body of the good news striper-wise is that the fish are waking up, the fishery is getting better, and by the end of March, it's usually red hot. We've got herring going up all these rivers. You'll have fish piling up below the runs. You'll have some topwater action, and from there, I mean, the fuse is lit. It just gets crazier and crazier from there. If you're not a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine, I highly recommend you go over to thefisherman.com and check out what we've got going on. We have a lot of stuff to offer there. There's a lot of free content on there for you to check out. Videos, articles, reports covering the entire region from Delaware all the way up to Maine, and lots of different fishing disciplines in there, from surf fishing to fly fishing, freshwater, center pin, all kinds of niche fishing in there, offshore stuff. So definitely go over there, give us a look. If you're still not convinced, at the very least, give us a like and subscribe here on YouTube and hit that little bell thing down there so you get a notification every time we post something new. Appreciate all you guys that are watching the video. Appreciate all you guys that are listening on the podcast. And, hopefully the reports catch us some fish this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.